Parasailing or skydiving into a hurricane sounds like a wild idea, right? Well, some people are giving it a closer look. A hurricane is a massive storm with super strong winds, rain, and chaos. If you tried to parasail during one, especially a big Category 5 hurricane, it would be extremely dangerous. The storm's powerful forces would make it impossible to control the parasail, and surviving such an adventure would be something to be discussed. Categories of hurricanes. Hurricanes are big storms with very strong winds, and they are put into categories so we can understand how strong they are. There's a scale called the Saffir-Simpson Hurricane Wind Scale that is used to do this. It has 5 categories, from 1 to 5. A Category 1 hurricane is the least strong. It has winds that go from 74 to 95 miles per hour. Even though it's the weakest, it can still break tree branches, damage buildings that are not very strong, and cause power outages. Category 2 hurricanes have winds from 96 to 110 miles per hour. These hurricanes can cause a lot more damage. They can tear roofs off houses, break big trees, and make it dangerous to be outside. When a hurricane reaches Category 3, it's called a major hurricane because its winds are between 111 and 129 miles per hour. These strong winds can destroy homes, cause big floods, and leave many people without electricity or water. Category 4 hurricanes are even more powerful, with winds from 130 to 156 miles per hour. They can tear apart most buildings, push the sea onto the land, and leave areas unlivable for weeks or months. The strongest hurricanes are Category 5, with winds faster than 157 miles per hour. These hurricanes cause complete destruction. They can flatten houses, wipe out entire neighborhoods, and change the shape of the land. Parasailing, an extreme sport. Parasailing and parachuting are 2 activities that let people experience the joy of flying through the air. Although they seem similar because both involve floating in the sky, they're quite different in how they work and the experiences they offer. Parasailing is often done at beaches or lakes. In this sport, a person is attached to a parachute-like canopy called a parasail, which is then towed behind a boat. As the boat speeds up, the wind catches the parasail, lifting the person into the air. The person floats above the water, enjoying the view from high up, while still being towed by the boat. Parachuting, on the other hand, is usually linked with skydiving. It starts with a jump from an airplane, followed by a free fall, during which the skydiver experiences the sensation of flying. Then, the parachute is deployed, and the skydiver gently glides down to the ground, steering the parachute to control their descent and landing spot. Both sports involve a lot of aerodynamics, the science of how air moves around things. For parasailing, the canopy acts like an airplane wing. Air moves over the top of the canopy faster than beneath it, creating lower pressure above and lifting the parasail and the rider into the air. The boat's speed and the wind's force determine how high and fast the parasail flies. While parasailing, the rider needs to maintain balance and communicate with the boat driver for a safe takeoff and landing. In parachuting, the skydiver must know how to exit the plane, control the free fall, deploy the parachute correctly, and steer it to land safely. While these sports offer incredible experiences and adrenaline rushes, they are extreme sports that come with risks. This leads some people to imagine the idea of pushing the limits further, like trying to fly in extreme conditions, such as a hurricane, for an even greater adrenaline rush. However, attempting to parasail or parachute in a hurricane would be incredibly dangerous. Besides the immediate physical dangers, such conditions would also make rescue operations extremely difficult if something went wrong. So let's talk about how this can turn out for you if you ever consider it. A wild parasailing adventure. Till now, no one has claimed to dive into a hurricane, not to mention parasail. Diving is advanced skydiving. The difference lies in the atmospheric condition. Skydiving is done in clear weather conditions, but diving is done during extreme natural conditions like hurricanes. So back to any records of diving into a hurricane. Perhaps anyone has tried, but I don't think they survived to tell the tale. And here's why. First off, hurricanes can reach altitudes between 35 and 40,000 feet above sea level. so diving into a hurricane sounds like a suicide mission. Theoretically, to be at altitudes of 15,000 feet and above requires the use of oxygen because we can't breathe that high up in the air. Now, you might have heard of the hurricane eye, that it is peaceful and calm with a blue sky above your head. So this leads us to the question, can't you parasail in the hurricane's eye to break the record? After all, the hurricane eye is also part of the hurricane. That seems like a brilliant idea, but before the cart is the horse, before the hurricane eye is the hurricane wall. You need to drive through the wall to get into the eye. The first problem is finding a boat operator. Now, boat operators have this ritual when a hurricane is near, known as hurricane preparation. It's a practice to secure their boats from destruction by the fierce storm. Getting a boat operator is the first daunting task. They dread sailing during hurricanes because the boats would be moving against the wind, which can result in damage to the boat or possibly capsizing. Let's assume luckily you were able to get a boat operator to drive you through the wall to the eye. Now we're in a region of temporal peace and calmness. However, there's no guarantee that the hurricane would be moving in a particular way. It can change direction at times. Moreover, you are restricted within the eye and surrounded by clouds, hail, rain, and of course extremely heavy winds. So hypothetically, if you were to parasail into the eye of the hurricane and fortunate enough for the hurricane to move in one direction, now it's time to set out. Before setting out, the hurricane's eye is between 35 to 65 kilometers in diameter. For parasailing, boats need to move at 15 to 30 miles per hour, and a whole parasailing session takes a minimum of 6 to 10 minutes. Do you get the facts? Now let's analyze. A storm is coming at 74 miles per hour. To get to your present location will take about 32 minutes. To a large extent, that's quite some time to parasail. But if caught in the air, you could find yourself being sucked up to a high altitude. And there, your chances of being struck by lightning are higher than on the ground because your wet body presents a better conduction path than surrounding air, which would result in instant death. Now, the eye of the hurricane is incredibly calm and peaceful, but as previously mentioned, the odds of the hurricane moving in one direction are uncertain. Lieutenant Colonel William Rankin had an extraordinary experience that is hard to believe. He was a pilot in the United States Marine Corps, flying high in the sky in an F-8 Crusader jet. One day, something unexpected happened during his flight that led to a remarkable story. The F-8 Crusader was a fast jet used by the military. Pilots like Rankin flew these jets on important missions. These jets could fly very high and very fast, which was essential for their missions. On a summer day in 1959, Rankin was flying his F-8 Crusader at about 47,000 feet. This is very high, higher than most airplanes fly. At this height, the air is very thin and it's extremely cold. Pilots need special suits and oxygen to survive up there. Suddenly, Rankin's jet had a serious problem. The engine failed and he knew he couldn't keep flying. In situations like this, pilots have to eject from the plane to save themselves. Ejecting means they use a special seat that shoots them out of the plane so they can parachute to safety. Rankin had to eject from his jet, but because he was so high and the situation was so urgent, he didn't have time to descend to a safer altitude. Ejecting at such a high altitude is very risky. When he ejected, he was instantly exposed to the cold and the thin air. After he ejected, something even more unbelievable happened. Rankin found himself in the middle of a thunderstorm. For 40 minutes, Rankin was trapped in the storm. The powerful updrafts, which are strong currents of rising air, kept pushing him back up into the sky every time he tried to descend. This is much longer than any normal parachute descent, which usually only takes a few minutes. During this time, Rankin faced extreme conditions. He was struck by lightning, soaked by rain, and pelted by hail. The wind tossed him around, making it hard to control his descent. The cold was intense, and the lack of oxygen at high altitudes made it hard to breathe. Finally, after what must have felt like an eternity, Rankin landed safely on the ground. He was injured and in shock from the ordeal, but alive. A scenario when parasailing went wrong. Though parasail is considered one of the safest sports in the world with fewer casualties per year, a little bit above 70 casualties, there are cases when parasailing goes wrong, resulting in severe injuries and death. Mind you, these cases occur when the wind is a little bit above 20 miles per hour, nothing compared to that of a hurricane. A glimpse into these stories would give you a better picture of what can happen during a hurricane. The story of Lisa Guerrero, a 31-year-old woman whose parasailing adventure in Mexico went wrong so close to costing her life. According to her testimony, she was launched into the air on a parasail. Though ominous storm clouds filled the air, the parasailing company assured her it didn't matter and was safe. However, on air, the wind caught up with her, true to the fact that you can never predict Mother Nature. The strong wind snapped her rope, leaving her drifting 1,000 feet in the air. Luckily, she landed but broke her skull, jawbones, cheekbones, a total of 11 bones in her body. Her attorney recorded she spent over 45 minutes on air. To wrap up, dealing with nature takes a lot of caution. You can never predict its behavior. When caught up during a hurricane, how you can die varies from drowning due to the vapor to getting struck by lightning to not having enough oxygen. It's safe to say parasailing or skydiving would be an incredibly bad idea. So just don't do it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to give a thumbs up, subscribe, take care, and see you next time.